What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. As always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. I'm the host of Epic Conversations. I'm the producer of Epic Conversations. Also, I am a certified empowerment coach, president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching Communications. I am jacked because we got some hometown posse on the Dr. Vibe show tonight. As you know, if you follow the Dr. Vibe show along the journey, most of the people we have on are not from my hometown, Toronto, but we are blessed and highly favored tonight to have two outstanding gentlemen on, Paul Nguyen and Dwayne Wright, a.k.a. Mr. Fresh. We're going to be chatting about a very interesting article that Paul pieced and penned and shared via Now Magazine called Jane-Finch Voices Speak Truth to Power on Gun Violence. Looking forward to getting both their perspectives on this area. And this is a worldwide audience, so gentlemen, I want you to be as honest and transparent as you can and educational as you can in regards to this important area of Toronto. But first, I want to introduce both of them. So first, I'd like to introduce the world to Paul. Paul, please share some of yourself with us, please.
What's up, everyone? And thank you, Dr. Vibe, for having us on your show. It's a great honor. So I'll tell you just quickly a little bit about myself. I'm a Vietnamese guy. I grew up in the Jane-Finch area. I still live there. Now, Jane and Finch is an intersection north of Toronto. So it's a Jane Street and Finch Avenue. And it's known, I guess, across the country, maybe even around the world, as a neighborhood that has had many challenges in the past. But we're a very vibrant community, a very multicultural community. And so basically, 15 years ago, I created a website called Jane-Finch.com. And it's basically a website about our hood. And it talks about our neighborhood in a positive way. Because we've been in the news for many years. There's always, media stereotypes that have been perpetuated. And people have this really bad idea about Jane and Finch is just a rough, tough, negative area. So I wanted to put a positive spin on that. And that's why I created my website.
Well, thank you so much for sharing and thank you for the article. It's so good to see an article not from the main publications, something that was real, nothing that was choreographed. It was real deal from someone who lives there. So I really appreciate you sharing that and looking forward to getting some of your perspective tonight. Also, we have Dwayne Wright, otherwise known as Mr. Fresh. Welcome to the Dr. Vibe Show. Please share some of yourself with our worldwide audience.
Hi everyone, how you guys doing? So I'm actually from a community called Jane and Finch. I like to call Jane and Finch Jane and Fresh to give a positive spin to it, to actually speak up against some of the negativity that you hear about the area. And I actually grew up there, born and raised. And as a result, my way out was actually entrepreneurship, actually becoming a business person. And I actually invented my own eco-friendly air freshener. And I incorporated my company, which the company is called Fresh and Famous Inc. And it is a company that also now gives back to areas like Jane and Finch and priority neighborhoods in Toronto, where we hire at-risk youth and allow them to actually sell our air fresheners to actually make income as well. So I'm really passionate about this topic in regards to how we can actually address gun violence. And I'm actually excited because this is actually something that I experienced firsthand growing up, seeing all kinds of things, drugs, guns, and being able to actually survive and be alive it's a blessing.
Excellent. We have two of the right people to talk about this important subject. And in Toronto, we have municipal elections coming up also. That has a very much an impact, and maybe we'll get to a comment by a certain representative about the Jane-Finch area. We will probably get to it somewhere down the road. Paul, how did your family arrive in the Jane-Finch area, and what are your first memories of arriving in the Jane-Finch area?
Well, my parents are from Vietnam, and they're among the wave of boat people. So during the Vietnam War, after the Communist North took over, so many people wanted to flee escape communism. So a lot of people, without connections or anything, they just took off on a boat. And they end up, like in nearby, say, Malaysia, for example. And then they're in refugee camps. And then Canada decided to sponsor maybe about 50,000 Vietnamese into Canada. This is about 1979, 1980. So my parents were among those first Vietnamese that came to Canada. And basically, they settled in Jane and Finch because Jane and Finch already had a growing Vietnamese population, and it was like a lot of affordable housing. So a lot of newcomers, immigrants, families in Finch. So that's how I grew up here in the neighborhood. My next door neighbor and my best friend was a black kid, so we're really integrated. I mean, race is not a thing that we think about because it's second nature, because we have friends from like all different colors. You just grow up that way, so it's totally normal for us.
Wonderful. Mr. Fresh, what were your experiences growing up as a young dude in the Jane and Finch area?
Wow. You know what? I'm going to be honest with you and tell you straight up. It was like going to Harvard. It was probably the best experience ever because you learn how to learn street smarts. You learn about how to be wise in that environment. You learn how to interact with people that school doesn't really teach. And you also learn about business. And, you know, I have to say this. Most of the kids that live in Jane and Fresh, or I would say, they are actually very smart. They're very smart and they have just as much business skills as a Harvard student as well. And it's just, they just need to actually take that ambition and put it into a legitimate business. I definitely think that that was my experience. It really taught me how to become a businessman and an entrepreneur.
Excellent. Paul, growing up in that area as a young man, was it at all challenging at any time? And then the same thing for Mr. Fresh after. But for you, Paul, were there any challenges growing up in that area for you or your family?
So that's a weird question, because when you're growing up in that kind of environment, you kind of get used to it. And if you're not exposed to other neighborhoods and other people from other parts of town, you kind of think this is normal. But upon having greater perspective, yes, there are a lot of challenges, especially with, you know, lack of resources. And, you know, we do have issues here. There's some, you know, crimes and gun shootings and gangs and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of sad. I mean, one day, you know, you can be walking home from school, then you see a SWAT team in someone's backyard. But as a kid, you think, well, that's kind of cool. But when you grow up and you become like, enter adulthood, you're like, oh, wow, this is actually not a normal everyday occurrence. And that it shouldn't be something that we should accept as a daily life. We should actually try to make things better, try to improve the community, and not let people, you know, look down on us. So that's why I created my website, to try to give a positive spin and to empower a lot of young people to speak up and have their own voice.
Excellent. Mr. Fresh, yourself, any challenges growing up? It sounds like you didn't have any, but I think there may have been one or two.
So for me, I grew up in Jane and Finch, which I like to call Jane and Fresh. And really, I'll share some things that happened for me growing up. I lost friends, actually. You know, some of the things issues actually getting beat up by the police and stuff like that at a young age. I remember being in grade 7, grade 8, and I got like just some police actually not doing what they're supposed to do, and there's just dirty cops and stuff like that. And that's kind of the stuff that exists in our community. You feel like the police are supposed to serve and protect you, but they're actually really just bringing the community down and just really not doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So another example in a story is actually, I had a friend, his name was KD. His real name is Andrew Stewart. He got shot 10 times, but before he died, he actually experienced something where I was working on a project called Exit, and it was actually to help kids in the area with recidivism. Now, being exposed to that firsthand and seeing that in my community, I also had a chance where there was actually an ETF team where they came into a restaurant on York Plaza, and innocent man that was just an elder got pistol whipped in his jaw just for trying to speak up when they came in. And literally injustice. And these are the type of things that go on. And like they had guns at innocent people in that restaurant. And it was just like, wow, like this is actually happening. And then they planted drugs on my friend, KD, he was actually an artist as well, and someone that spoke up in the community and would diffuse situations all the time within the area. So that was actually really challenging, losing a friend like that, and also going through firsthand experiences myself. I had to really distance myself away from things and be wise enough to not get caught up. But I went through my transitioning phase. I wasn't always I didn't always get it. And I feel like, that's really important to also understand, is that there's a process. We grow as we go along. And I feel like for me, it was definitely a transitioning process. I had to learn things. I started reading and stuff like that. And it was gradually a process. I started dressing different. I used to dress different before, right?
Excellent. Just want to shout out one of the faithful fans and friends of the Dr. Vibe Show, Dr. Tachi from Florida is on. She's saying this is amazing, and she says to Mr. Fresh, yes, it becomes your normal. To both of you, it becomes your normal. And she has, just want to plug, she has the livest media party on every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. on Periscope and Facebook Live. It's called Mediascope, where she covers the best in pop culture, tech, and I think maybe something else, but I forget, Dr. Tachi. But you can certainly fill me in on that, and certainly a program you need to catch. Gentlemen, Paul, let me ask you, why did you decide to write this article now?
Well, these days, because we have an increase in gun violence in the city of Toronto this summer, so the media has called it the Summer of the Gun Part 2. And so I was there during the Summer of the Gun, the initial one in 2005, when there was a rash of gun shootings. And me and my partners at the website, we were, often in the media speaking out and trying to advocate for our community. So, now we have this resurgence of gun violence, and I've been, monitoring the news and just seeing that, the same old voices, the same people that are not really connected to the neighborhood, I don't feel like they have a firsthand experience. So what I wanted to do is get the real people from the hood, straight from the horse's mouth, and get their stories and their ideas on how gun violence can be stopped. So that was the idea for the article.
Okay, before we go any further, I remember Dr. Tachi, it's media, tech, and pop culture. So forgive me, Dr. Tachi, on that. Paul, and I want both of you to go back. This is regarding the second Summer of the Gun. Take us back to your experiences in the Jane-Finch or Jane-Fresh area during the first Summer of the Gun. So I'll let Mr. Fresh start on that first.
So the first Summer of the Gun, that's a question just to clarify it?
Yes, your experiences during the first Summer of the Gun.
Okay, so for me, my experience is, it's always like disappointing when you see that your community people are getting shot and things like that. There's a lot of things that have taken place in the community, even down in different parts of Jane and Fresh, where you have some people, young men that have died in Lane and all different parts of the area. And seeing all that happen and seeing young people not even getting a chance. Actually, I lost a lot of friends, people that I grew up with. And it's sad. It's like really something where, a lot of people where I'm from have died. And it just makes me think, like, why is it like that? Like, a lot of them are not even living to see 30, And if you live to see 30, you're lucky. Like, it actually has got to that point where so much of the kids that I went to school with died. Like even when Jordan Manners died in the Jeffrey School, right? That all these types of things that are happening in our community, where the guy went to school, his mom sent him to school. You're expected to see your son come home. You know what I mean? And these are the type of things that are happening. Another situation is that another few young teens, I think there were 16 or 15 or 17 around that age, and two of them, I think it was three of them, or two of them got shot down, right in Lane. So Grand Ravine Drive, right? So, seeing stories like that and seeing young youth losing their life, it's definitely needs to stop, and I feel that, as a community, we need to come together. We need to address the situation, figure out why is it happening, and provide opportunities. That's the solution, not put them in jail only, but when they come out, because this is the reason why it keeps continuing, is because when you put them in jail and then you mess up their life, they can't get a job. So what do you expect, right? And not only that, but they're now in a cycle of the system and recidivism where they become a client for the justice system, where the justice system is benefiting from them being a client, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Paul, what are your memories of the first so-called Summer of the Gun?
Well, we did a lot of media interviews, and we're able to see, people come out the woodwork. We have like politicians, community activists, and I think a lot of opportunists as well. Trying to build a name, trying to kind of profit off of the misery in a way. And it's funny that Mr. Fresh, you mentioned Jordan Manners because in a year earlier, me and my friend, we filmed a documentary for the CBC. It's a program called The Fifth Estate, and the documentary was called Lost in the Struggle. It was about 3 kids, involved in gang life in Jane and Finch area. So a lot of media people were hitting us up and trying to get, contact because actually Jordan's mom was in our documentary, but ultimately she got cut out of the final cut. So, just to see people scrambling, trying to get interviews. I remember, I hear stories of reporters coming to the neighborhood. They're trying to bring flowers to the grieving mother because they want to get an interview. But you know what? The neighborhood didn't stand for that. They just took the flowers like, thanks, now get the hell out of here. So, the community is very protective of itself and its own people. And we don't want people to come in here and just kind of like, the mom, she just lost her son. But people are just scrambling, trying to get interviews, just trying to make a story, trying to get, their views or their whatever it is. So it's terrible when these things happen. And outsiders, typically always benefit, because they're just doing their job, they're getting the ratings, but they don't understand people's lives are affected. People are hurt, they're dying out here, they're suffering.
Excellent. Well, and I again want to say, Paul, thank you for having that website to give the real story and dealing with people's lives, not for ratings, but for really dealing the lives and the impact. So kudos to what you're doing. So we had the Summer of the Gun a few years ago, and we basically heard nothing. And now we're hearing this again. What has happened, good or bad, to the Jane Finch or Jane Fresh area between these two, I guess, benchmarks? What has happened? It seems like politicians and the government have basically forgotten about it. Now it's become a hot topic again. What has been going on over the last number of years, good, bad, or ugly? Who wants to take that first?
Okay, I'll take it. I mean, initially when we had the Summer of the Gun and we had a rash of shootings, I think the general public just kind of never really paid attention because it didn't really affect them in their own backyards. Until we had the shooting downtown at Eaton Center. It was a young Caucasian girl named Jane Kriba. She was young, 15 years old, and was shot in a public place. The whole community, the whole public reacted. And then we're bringing leaders from the U.S. to try to address our issues. The government was pumping money into all these programs and funding. So it's kind of sad. We had a lot of people in the community who have been, victimized until someone, like a white person that was shot downtown, then all of a sudden the public reacted in a big way. So it's kind of unfortunate. And, kind of similar here, we have a lot of shootings that people are dying and the gun violence on the increase. And now the government has reacted with more money, but they're pumping the money, they're directing the dollars to like more policing and into the police services. And they're not looking at programs and hiring people, because the best social program is a job, right? So I think they should direct a lot of that money towards like programming and also supporting people and entrepreneurs like Mr. Fresh. That's a good example right there.
Okay. Mr. Fresh, what's been going on between the Summer of the Gun and now?
Well, what's going on is really I feel like there's a lot of, it's almost like a game in a sense, because a lot of the reasons why our area is the way it is because a lot of it has to do with the politics, and a lot of it has to do with the way how the government funds our area as well, right? And I feel like just a lot of the issues that they're just what Paul said actually in regards to how they go about funding things. Like, for example, more policing. It's not working. It's not creating a better relationship with our community. If not, it's only causing more recidivism. And when I say that it's only causing more recidivism, it's only causing more crime. And that's the issue. It's if you want to fix something, get to know the people. Find out what they're going through. What is the struggle that we experience as a community in Jane and Fresh? What is it that the mothers have to go through? My mom was one of those people that I barely saw when I was younger. Always going to work and having to do night shifts. And, it's really the fact that, the people that are living there are hardworking people. Not only that, but it's the way how they go about fixing the issues, and it's not working. So in order to really fix the problem, I feel that we need to actually have more solutions and invest into the youth, invest into grants, opportunities to reintegrate some of the people that have gone through the system back into society. Don't label them, make them like something where they have to be forced to a life of crime. A lot of the people that are committing the crime, they don't really have a choice, some of them. Like, it's like they want to get out, but they don't know how. It's like they're so deep in, and they don't really know how to get out. And I think if we understand that, okay, well, people make mistakes, right? But if someone makes a mistake and now they're in your data and in your system, and all you're doing is putting more police in, it's only going to make more issues in our community. It's not going to help in any way. And I feel that, yes, policing is important to a certain extent, but not to the extent where you need to over police and now make us feel like we're criminals. That's what it feels like.
Paul, in regards to your article, when you proposed it to Now Magazine, were they all for it right from the get-go? And what was the process that you had to go through to get some of these wonderful people featured in the article?
Well, yes, I pitched it to the editor, and instantly I think he recognized the significance and the value of it, because gun violence is on the radar right now. And I think he understood that I was in a position to be able to bring genuine and authentic voices to the conversation. So that was part one. And, getting these guys in the article and having, a cross-section of the community, people of different backgrounds and different experiences. It was very important to have that kind of representation. And authenticity was like the most important thing I was going for. So these people I knew personally, and I felt like, they would bring so much to the table by sharing their stories. And I think that I was in a position of that they trusted me enough to share their stories. So I'm very thankful that they took the opportunity and to share the stories for the wider society, for other Torontonians to know what's really happening in the neighborhoods.
Excellent. How long did it take from the time you thought about this story till it actually got published?
Well, the guy, they gave me a quick deadline because they wanted to go to print, right? But I think it was just a matter of, it took a week to assemble the people and interview them, but probably 2 to 3 weeks until they published. So we had to do some of the photography. They sent a photographer down, take some shots of each person, and then when they put it together. So it was a quick turnaround.
Excellent. Mr. Fresh, I want you to attack or go at this subject for us and the audience. The whole area of police relationship with this community. You've lived there all your life. Yes. Has it got any better?
No, it has not. I want to say something. I don't want to say something. When I was in grade 7, grade 8, the police were coming into the building. Someone got shot on the second floor, and in my building, one of the places I lived in many places throughout the area, but someone got shot in the building, and then they actually came to the community and actually were just looking for people that had nothing to do with the situation. And I was it was like literally Christmas. I actually remember like around Christmas time where there was this cop. He seemed like he was pretty racist because the man hit me in my face just because I had a hood on at the time when I was younger. And, literally like harassing me in the stairwell, because there was no cameras there, right? And that alone tells you about the injustice. And then even being that young age, like they treat me better now than I'm older or whatnot. But, and also because I respect myself. But at the same time, at that time when I was younger, I was actually surprised at the fact that an adult is trying to put their hands on me at that age. I didn't even do anything, really, right? And I think that, a lot of the police in the area, a lot of them don't really have the community's interests at heart. There's only a few good cops. There's only a few good quality officers that have the community training to actually come out into the community. I have experienced both a positive and negative relationship with the police officers, and that was only positive when I actually started to learn more about the system and started dressing differently and stuff like that, and having more of a knowledge of how community work and social work and things like that, and also becoming a businessman. But as I was transitioning, it's like they don't have any respect. They see I've been pulled over so much times in that area, like for do you have a gun on you? And they're telling me to lift up my waist, my shirt, just to see if I have a gun on me, and I don't have a gun on me. And just that experience alone tells you that there's a just the way how they card you. There's a huge issue with carding in our community, and just gathering data about the residents. And this has been an issue. It's actually been stopped. It's supposed to be a policy that has been stopped, and they say it's not. Their police force has agreed to stop carding, but even now, some of the youth have to still deal with that, and they always keep continuing to break the rules and bend the rules the way how they want to police. And I find that to be very. It's hard to trust them because they have not created that trust with the community and a relationship where we can trust them. They come to our community. They actually do all kind of things, and it's acceptable. Like, they even kill some of the youth. Like, I know some kids that have actually been killed by police. Junior was one of them, where his name was Junior. They jumped on his neck right at York University and killed the guy. I grew up with that guy, right? And this is the type of stuff that's happening in our community. Like that guy, despite of what he did or not, I don't know what he did, but all I know, he wasn't causing trouble at the time when they pulled him over and they killed him.
I know you love your hat game, and we're not getting your hat in the view. So if you can,
Sorry.
okay,
Sorry,
a little bit better. You need to move away from the camera because I know this man prides his hat game. So okay,
yes.
There we go. So I want to make sure, at least for most of this, some of your hat game gets in. You mentioned something interesting during your sharing there. I'm going to have Paul add on to it. Can you explain to our audience, us three know, and many Torontonians know, the whole issue of carding? What is carding?
Well, carding was a practice by the police where, they can stop people and ask them questions and kind of retain data into their system, even if the person didn't do anything wrong. So, a lot of people were against it because, why should they have information on a person if they didn't commit a crime or if there's no investigation? So a lot of, civil rights advocates and stuff and activists were, fought against it, and then it went up, to the police board. It was like a big, story in the news. So a lot of people fought against it, and ultimately they decided to cancel that policy of carding. But I think the conversation has come back because now with the increase in gun violence, I think a lot of people, some members of the public, but members of the police force are asking for that tool to be re-implemented because they feel like it's of value to stop the future gun violence. Now, in reference to your story about being pulled over and all that kind of stuff, that does happen, and it did happen to my close friends. And the way I chose to address that problem is driving or walking while black. That's the term, right? So for me, I might not have the same problems because I'm not black, but I did have issues with the police in the past, and had been a target through my website. So what I did is I wanted to educate the community and raise awareness. So back a couple of years ago, we made a video documentary called Know Your Rights. And we had legal professionals, and we filmed the documentary and we interviewed them and tried to teach the community, if you interact with police and you have a police interaction, what are your rights? What can you do properly to get out of that situation and not be affected? So that video is on our website, and those are the kind of things that I like to do because I feel my contribution as a member of the community is as a position of a storyteller. So I don't want to tell people what to say, what to think, but for me, it's finding those stories and finding that information and putting it online for the public to digest. And then when they have that information, they have a full picture, then they can decide what position they'll take on whatever the issue is.
Thank you for that. Nice sharing. Mr. Fresh, we're losing your hat again. We're still losing. We still don't got it. But as long as we get your face, that's what counts. As long as we get your face. Okay, that's beautiful. Mr. Fresh, I want to ask you something. When you see people leave Jane-Finch, how does that make you feel?
When I see people leave Jane and Finch, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, I feel that at some point in your life, you need to see the world. And I feel like the world is a big place. And sometimes being in the hood, sometimes you lose sight of that. It's like two different worlds, right? And I feel that, that for the reality for someone living in Jane and Fresh, is that some of the kids actually never had a chance to actually leave the area. Like, I've actually had friends at one point where I used to wonder, how come you guys you don't want to go anywhere? And some of the people don't want to go anywhere because their reality is that if they leave their community, they may be shot or all kind of things can happen, or they may not know a world outside of their community. And I feel that, being able to be in business and understand what's actually to see the world, the importance of actually seeing other communities, you start to realize that, there's different, I think the terminology is gentrification. It's that when you go to different communities, you actually start to realize what other communities have access to versus ours, right? So I've seen bit of both sides of both sides of both worlds, right? And I've noticed in other communities, there's more of an investment with environmental culture, like planting of trees, making the community look better. And that's a huge issue there. Like, the frequency of even the trees, like investing money into our community is also important as well. And I feel that, when people get a chance to actually see outside of the community, I find it to be a very positive thing because now they get to see that there's a big world out there that they can actually take over. And if they put their mind to it, they can be something in life, right? So I feel that that's really important to really have the opportunity to be bigger and not just let your environment define you. Just because you grew up in a low-income neighborhood means that you have to live your life in poverty, right? So I feel that it's always a positive thing when people get a chance to get out and buy a house. One of my taglines from the article in Now magazine was "Don't die over the neighborhood your mom was renting," right? Because I believe that we're here to build generational wealth, right? That's what we're here to do. We're here to strive, and we need to actually buy a house one day, buy real estate, actually raise a family, and that's what these guys need to do. That's what our community and the mothers need to do. We all need to get to a point where we have to realize that we're in the community, but we're here temporary. Like we're just here for a moment. We're just renting for a moment. And the plan is to actually buy a house, live in a better community, of course, or make our community better. Invest more money into Jane and Fresh.
Paul, in all your time being in the area, was there a moment or a stretch of time that things were looking brighter? Or has it basically been the same, but the only difference is more attention in regard to policing has been the case? Has there any been a shining light time or period of hope in your period of time in Jane and Finch?
Well, it depends on the person you talk to. So some of the volunteers that I've worked with at the website, they've gone on to do great things, and they're using the website as a stepping stone. So we've had some people that went on to, achieve great things like, getting a full tuition scholarship to university, which is like a lot of value, but they're also getting their education. It's a lifelong investment. And we've had people become, media personalities or, winning awards and, taking it to the next level. So I think there's a lot of hope, there's a lot of positivity, and we need to get those stories out there to inspire the next generation, the younger ones coming up, to see, hey, all these guys are from Finch. They can meet the prime minister, they can go on TV, they can do all these things. So a lot of times, whenever I have a special moment, I'd like to share that moment on my website. We do a lot of behind the scenes video just to show kids like, hey, you know what? I still walk around the hood. You're going to see me at Jane and Finch Mall or the McDonald's or whatever, or at the York Woods Plaza. But, you can still do great things. You can still live here, and we can still make this place better. And actually, a lot of people don't know, in Jane and Finch, there's a lot of pockets of very expensive homes. You could drive around Grand Ravine. There's $1 million homes there. So
Yeah,
Jane and
true.
Finch has a lot going for it. I think we need to kind of just break those stereotypes and the myths that people have in their head, that Jane and Finch is all bad and it's all no good. It's actually a lot of good out there. So if they want to learn more, they should always check out the website, or better yet, take the bus, go to Downtown Station, take the 108, come down to the area, go to check it out, and you'll learn a lot.
Excellent.
That's true.
Dwayne, during your life at Jane and Fresh, has there been a moment of time where things were looking brighter? There was an increased amount of hope?
Yes. So I was also a part of a project called the Green Change Project, and that actually happened in Jane and Fresh. And really what we actually did, we planted trees. I actually was a Green Change agent, and I actually participated in a tree planting event through Starbucks that was sponsored. And we actually reduced the carbon footprint by over 2,000 tons. Nice. And we also ended up winning the Green Toronto Awards. And I was one of the key people that had an active part in doing that. So I actually had to knock the doors, educated residents about eating healthier, eating green, and actually how to respect what we have in our community. So for me, one of the key things that somebody said that came to Jane and Fresh or Jane and Finch to Canada was Majora Carter. And she said that you shouldn't have to leave your community to live in a better one. So that term in itself was, green the ghetto. Like, if we can actually green the ghetto, it would result in less crime. It would result in more productivity, because most of the people and the energy in that space would actually have a chance to feel better about themselves, feel better about their environment. If they see that they have a clean environment, why are they going to want to make trouble? If they see that the environment has value, you're going to find that more people respect it and say, hey, man, let's not have any problems here today. Hey, man, let's take care of our neighborhood and be one. But we need to get that chance. And I feel like that chance of actually investing more environmental dollars in the area, like having flowers and stuff like that. Like Paul said, we have nice homes in the area. There's the ghetto part of Jane and Fresh, and then there's also the part where there's the rich part, where it's the Italian homes and stuff like that no one knows about, right? So that's really how our area is. Like, we have both a wealthy part to it, and then we have a poverty part to it.
Okay.
And come check it out.
Paul, Dwayne had mentioned the G word, gentrification. Is that rearing its head in the Jane and Finch area?
Well, you know what? I had some people contact me. They're from builders, and because there's I think there's certain section of community housing. I think is it Connections. So it's along Jane and near Yorkwoods, and that place is kind of it's in a state of disrepair. So a lot of the residents had to leave, and I think they're going to knock that place down and kind of build new mixed housing, and that's kind of the idea. Now, people are scared because of the experiences that were informed by such areas as, like, say, Regent Park. And that place was knocked down, and they have all these new high-rise condos. It's supposed to be for mixed, housing, but a lot of the condos are like $500,000 now. And, residents or people who live in community housing, they can't afford that. And there's not enough housing for all of them, so a lot of them get pushed out into the suburbs and further away. So I think a lot of residents in Jane and Finch have that kind of fear that they might not be able to stay in the same place and that they're going to be pushed out further away.
Dwayne, are you hearing that same sort of conversation amongst people in the area?
Yes, I actually have knowledge of what's actually going to be taking place. Apparently, they want to invest over $1 billion into Finch, along Finch, and a lot of the people that they plan to hire even are, people that don't look like ourselves. Like, they're not from the community. I feel that if you really want to invest wealth into Toronto, you should hire the residents that are from low-income areas. This is how we end poverty. This is how you address the issue. Like, you can't complain about the issue and then you're actually not given the opportunities. And that's the problem. It's like a game, because people that have the power to make these changes, there's a lot of people that are profiting off of people's struggle. And that goes back to what Paul was saying, actually, because, this is what's actually happened in our community. We have a lot of people that are taken from our community, making profit from people suffering. And that is the issue, is that, you're going to come to our community, you're going to knock down everything down. And of course, Toronto is becoming much more valuable as it goes along. And now they want to rebuild the whole area now. And that's what's going to end up happening. They're going to probably start building condos in the area. And a lot of the people that are behind the scenes that you don't normally see in the community are profiting. So Jane and Fresh is the way it is only because of the politics. A lot of it has to do with the way how everything is being, the way how everything is actually going on behind the scene and organized, right? So I actually, a good visual image is actually a hand with strings at the top, and then the gun is there as well. So that this shows you actually what's really going on, right? Behind the scenes. It's really like some of the people, they don't even know better. It's a matter of actually realizing that, okay, if we're going to end poverty, hire the residents from the community, hire them.
And Dr. Tachi is saying, yes, the developers need to hire people from the community. So she definitely agrees with what both of you are saying. And I see Paul nodding his head. Paul, we've had over the last few months a change in provincial government. What are you hearing? What are both you hearing about the change of the provincial government and their potential concerns about what could happen to Jane and Finch because of the change in the provincial government?
Well, we did have a recent provincial election, and we had a new MPP from the NDP party. Previously, it was the former MPP was a Liberal, and Liberals have a strong presence in the Jane Finch community. Now, I think if you're referring to the upcoming municipal elections, that we did, there was about 47 city councillors to take care of Toronto. And now with the new Conservative government in the provincially, they cut it down to 25. So now I think Jane and Finch is situated like in Ward 7 and 8. So I think that's going to be combined. So we're going to have half the councillors and more competition for the upcoming election. I think, I want to say too much about it, but I think that as long as we have new voices and people that care, that are running, then we should support those people. No matter if it's 25 councillors, 35 or 45, you know what? It doesn't make a difference if there's 100 people and they don't care about you. But if we have 2 people and they care about the communities, that can do a whole lot of good. So I think we need to support those voices. There's a lot of young and up and comers who are running, and they're from the community, and I think that's a great thing, and we should pay attention to those people.
Mr. Fresh?
I agree with Paul. He said the right things. I feel that we need new voices. I feel that some of the people that have been there for over 25 years in council, and there has been not that much improvement, I feel like there's a separation from who these people want to support, including with the BIA, and where things are actually going. So I feel that, our community is under this holdback because of the old same voices that are there. And I feel that, it needs to change, because these people that are in office so long, they need to give someone else a chance. Like, let somebody else help. Like, let's select someone new for a change. So, definitely to the councillors that are running, I definitely want to say that I actually support them, the new voices especially. And one of the people that is running in our area is Tiffany Ford. And I will also give that to her and shout her out, because I feel like it's important for people like her to step up, because we need to see more of that. We need to see people of color as well being able to enter a space like that and actually represent our people, because she knows what it feels like to be poor. She understands, versus someone else that may have not understood or came from a high income home, right? So she actually grew up in the community. So without getting too much into politics, I feel that, it's time for us to have some change. I want to see new councillors this time around for both offices. You
did mention Miss Ford, and we are planning to have her on in the near future on the Dr. Vibe Show. We're just going back and forth to nail down a time, and looking forward to a dynamic conversation with her. This municipal election is going to be very important. And recently, a councillor named Giorgio Magnoliti made a very interesting statement about some of the residents of the Jane Finch area, referring to some of them as, quote, cockroaches, unquote. So I'd like to know and you knew I was going to bring this up, so I know you're prepared for it. First, I wanted to get each one of your responses to that statement, and also what are the residents of the area's reaction to that statement. So, Paul, go first.
Of course, there was an immediate reaction to those comments, and a lot of people felt really hurt and really offended. But the same token, I think, some of the comments may have been taken out of context, because I think it's important to actually, whenever you hear a snippet of someone saying something, a quote, I think it's important to go to the source and watch the interview in its entirety. So, I think the general feeling is the residents feel like this counselor is calling everyone a cockroach. But actually, in fact, my interpretation of the interview was he was referencing a lot of gang members, people who are committing crimes that happen to live in the Toronto community housing. And I think that was his intention, was to kind of, give condemnation to those folks and to try to speak strongly. So I'm not defending or whatever either way, but I think it's important whenever we're, consuming news that we have to, get the full picture. And then we can have an accurate, reaction towards it. But of course, calling anybody a cockroach, it's a terrible thing. And I think we should focus on positive, actions and solutions and trying to help people out of poverty, or even people who are, committing crimes. If they go to jail, they pay their debt to society. They have to come back. We have to reintegrate them. Like Mr. Fresh said, we have to welcome these people back. They are part of the society. So I think it's important to, help everybody, and not just, there's the good kids, but there's the bad kids, and they especially need more attention. So we have to give them extra special attention, because we want everyone to do well, no matter what your background is or what you've done in the past. We want everyone to, be a happy member of society and contribute and make Jane and Fresh, a better place.
Mr. Fresh?
I agree with exactly what Paul said. I feel that, looking into the full details of the story is important, but I feel that his approach just kind of shows that he it's kind of out of touch with the community. Calling a community member a cockroach, is unacceptable. It doesn't matter who it is. And to me, I'm saying that because a lot of the youth or the adults, whoever are causing the crime, they had issues. They didn't grow up in Beverly Hills, right? They actually have issues, right? So it's like, if these people are causing crime, what's the reason why? How was their childhood? What kind of pain do they have? Are they in the system? Are they recidivists? What is the real issue? Get down to the facts. Don't just say something and just say the problem and call someone cockroaches, but you don't know how to relate to them. You don't know their empathy, right? Understand why is the problems happening, right? People that are in this lifestyle, they're in the lifestyle for a reason. And there's also people that are also bringing in the drugs. Where are the drugs coming from? A lot of it, those are the questions that you have to ask. They're not exporting it or importing it in. It's coming from somewhere. So oftentimes, yes, it's the people that are on the chessboard that are the pawns that are being called the cockroaches. But you, as the person that's on the top, you're calling yourself, you're making it. It's not a humble statement, in my opinion. I feel that I actually seen some messages about it on WhatsApp from people. And the community was really, really upset. And I also feel that, it's just time for us to move on. It's time for us to, if you're going to refer to members of the community that way, then you shouldn't be in office. That's my opinion. I feel that you should not represent our community. You should be fixing the problem. Stop complaining about the problem. Fix the problem. Why are you in office? Why are you representing our people if you don't want to deal with the problem and going to call people cockroaches? It's highly disrespectful.
I want to ask both of you, what are some of the great misconceptions about Jane Finch, but what are some of the things that make it very special? Paul?
Misconceptions, just like, gang members and drug dealers roaming the streets. That's not true. We do have issues and things happen from time to time, but that's like less than 1% of the time. 99% is just kids, playing in the neighborhood, folks going to work. If you come to Jane and Finch at 4 a.m., you're going to see people lining up at the bus stop to get to work. That's hardworking people right there. You go to the intersection, there's nothing happening there. It's actually kind of boring. It's a lot of people going to and fro from work. because they're, trying to provide for for their families. I remember as a kid, I used to ride, my bike in the neighborhood, and we wouldn't have any money, but you wouldn't actually need that much money. You can just go to the building in the summertime. You're at the bottom in the grassy field, and people up on the balconies will throw down toys. They'll throw down freezies and popsicles for the children below. So people are very generous. It's a very warm community. I think the greatest asset of the community is that you find that people are genuine. So they're very warm, they're very welcoming. There's no pretension. There's no racist feelings. People are very welcoming because you know what, we're coming from all different places, but we're striving to better ourselves and provide for our kids and to make a better future. So a lot of people, we even though we come from different places around the world, everyone is trying to fight for the same thing, and that is to build a better future. Dwayne?
All right. I agree with Paul as well. Based off my experience growing up in Jane and Finch was very similar, and it's actually a nicer community than people make it out to be. It's actually really supportive. One of the things that he said that really stuck with me is that if you come to Jane and Finch or Jane and Finch in the morning time, you will see people lined up every morning, getting ready to go to work at 4 o'clock. And not only that, but you don't need a bulletproof vest to come to our community. I found that very offensive when that happened. And, like Paul, like you could actually walk your dog in Jane and Finch, right? There's no problem. If you're not caught up in anything dirty, then guess what? Nothing's going to happen to you. It's the people that are causing the crime, that are selling drugs. That's where the shootings start. It's the people that are getting into the wrong lifestyle that are actually having the problems. But the people that are actually working class citizens of this country, they are actually, contributing to Canada just as much as anybody else. And I feel that it's kind of like, it's really disrespectful when you discount us, like we don't exist. And I feel that that's the issue that's been going on. It's like you're ignoring our community. You're ignoring our voices. And it's important for people like Paul that started Janeandfinch.com to have a media outlet that actually highlights what's actually happening in our community, and when we get a chance to speak up, because that's not what's happening on the media, in the media, I should say. Sorry, and you always see negative stories. Someone gets shot at Jane and Shepherd. Oh, you're saying someone got shot at Jane and Finch, right? So that's the issue that we're having going forward. Is that when we move forward, they're putting us 2 steps backwards, right? And that's the issue, is that we need to really look at the facts and understand that, there's people like myself. I grew up in Jane and Finch. Look at me. I'm not a bad guy. I have my own business, and there's a lot more youth that can become successful from the area. Just give them a chance.
Excellent. For both of you, have you ever thought of leaving, and what keeps you there? Paul?
Well, for me, I love it here. All my friends are here. I feel very safe here. There's a lot more work to be done. So if I went to another neighborhood, it'd be hard to come back to Jane and Finch and continue doing the work. And I'm very passionate about volunteering and doing stuff in the community. There's so much stuff going on, just festivals, events, different cultures. You can experience a lot of the world here at your fingertips in Jane and Finch. Now, of course, it's important to explore different parts of the city, but Jane and Finch has a lot going for it. We have a major university here. Just York University is just a few steps away. You go to Shoreham, you walk 5 minutes, we have the tennis stadium there where they have the Rogers Cup. A lot of these things should be exposed, and people in the neighborhood, I hope they would attend these things. There's a lot of world-class events that are happening within the proximity of Jane and Finch. So I think we have a lot going for it, and we can continue doing great things here.
Mr. Fresh.
Right. What I can say is, I call Jane and Finch Jane and Fresh, and I see it as a fresh community. I see it as good people getting away from the stigma, getting away from all the negative things that they say about the area. And I feel like we need to reintroduce ourselves to the world and let people know that, great things come out of this area. Going forward into 2019, we need to step up and really actually address the issues and start off fresh and really fix what's going on. And I hope that, this coming election, that a lot of the things that we're speaking about in this conversation, we're able to address as a community and stand strong. We shouldn't be hearing any more people getting shot in our area. And we should see that, we want to see more kids graduated. There's actually a lot of good people that come into this area. There's people that have gone to Harvard as well. And I would say that, some of the most successful people come out of Jane and Fresh. Some of the most successful people. Dwight Drummondwood, all types of people. I've met a lot of people, even in Jane and Finch Mall, and you'd be surprised, some of the people that walk through there.
Excellent.
Right? So, yeah.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, Dwight Drummond is a CBC News anchor in Toronto, and he came out of Jane and Fresh, and he's proud of saying that he came out of Jane and Fresh. That's where he was born and raised. As we wind down our conversation here, I'm going to have, we like to be solutions oriented as we wind up every conversation here. So I'm going to ask Mr. Fresh first and Paul, if you had an opportunity to speak with people who have the power to make change, what would you say to them? Whether it's political people, whether it's business people, if you could get them all lined up in a room and you could stand in front of a podium and say, this is what you need to do, what would you tell them? Dwayne first.
Okay, I would say educate them on financial literacy, financial management, teach the kids about the stock market, teach them about owning high quality businesses, teach them about life insurance so they're able to build and preserve generational wealth, understanding how wealth is created, and also the importance of actually giving back as well. I feel that, if what Jane and Fresh needs is love. We need people to actually, if I had a chance to speak to people of power, I'd say create an entrepreneurial program. Let these kids come to see you as an executive in your work. How did you start your company? I feel that a lot of the CEOs in Toronto need to have an active role, more so in what's actually going on. There needs to be a bridging program and allow the kids like even myself to be able to actually see what does it look like to get to that level as well. And even when you reach there, how do you get to a point where you are building a company that's actually creating jobs in Canada, right? Which is what I'm doing now. But it'll be nice to see more of that invested in our community, more entrepreneurs, more CEOs coming out of the Jane and Fresh.
Paul?
Yes, I totally agree that we need more education and teaching people skills and having a goal and reaching their potential. I think if I had a chance with all the politicians, all the bigwigs and leaders, I would actually just ask them to come down to the neighborhood, get to know the people, be friends with them, be actual real friends, not just come by and give a speech. And once you have those relationships and we're a very strong community, then of course we're going to all help each other. So I hope that in the future we have new leaders from the community, but if they also happen to be outside the community, they should come down and be a part of our community. And we welcome everyone, and we want to build those relationships, those connections, and have everyone working together towards the same goal, which is just making a better and brighter future for everybody.
That is a great way to end off another epic conversation here on the Dr. Vibe Show. I'd like to say thank you to Dwayne and Paul for taking time out of their positive, productive schedule to share with us. Before we let them leave, we'd be happy if they give their contact information. So Dwayne, how can people reach out to you?
People can reach out to me on Instagram.
And for me, you can come to Jane-Finch.com. That's JaneFinch.com. Everything's my email, my cell phones has been there. It's been up on the website for over 15 years. So you're welcome to reach out to me anytime.
No problem. Dwayne, finish off what you were going to say.
Sorry. So people can reach out to me at on my Instagram at Mr. Fresh and Famous or freshandfamous.com. Also, just something I would like to share as well is that I'm going to be releasing my book soon as well. And that's something, if anybody wants to learn more about my story, my biography will be coming out. So just wanted to share that. And you can also connect with me on Facebook at Fresh and Famous. That's our product page. But mainly on Instagram or our website is you can get in contact with us.
Fantastic. No problem. Yeah. But we will include their contact information on the post with the replay of this epic conversation. I'm Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show. If you want to watch replays of my epic conversations, you can go to YouTube, put in the search engine the space DR period space VIBE space SHOW. If you want to listen to replays of the audio conversations, the Dr. Vibe show website, the DR VIBESHOW.com. Apple, I can also listen to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio. You can listen to the most recent audio conversations on Alexa, Amazon Alexa, and you can hear selected audio replays at thegoodmenproject.com and WJMS Radio out of New York City. I am a certified empowerment coach, president and CEO of Express Your Vibe Coaching and Communications. If you'd like a complimentary session, please reach out to me, Twitter at DRVIBESHOW, email DR_VIBE at the DRVIBESHOW, or go to my website, go to the top, click on Connect with the Dr. Vibe show, and you'll be able to email me, send an audio message or video message right there on the platform. I'm a brand ambassador for the only online magazine dedicated to African Americans in food, wine, and travel. The name of the magazine is Cuisine Noir Magazine. The website address is cuisinenoirmag.com. I offer a service for businesses and entrepreneurs. If you'd like to get media promotion, the name of the service is called Getting Media Coverage, where I help businesses and entrepreneurs get media promotion so they can elevate their business, product, or service. Finally, two things coming up. I have two speaking, I call them sharing experiences, but people like to say speaking appearances coming up. September 8th in Niagara Falls, I'll be at the Truth Conference at Niagara Falls, Ontario. I'll be talking about being single. And then I am MC for 2 days coming up on November 17th and 18th, the Men and Women's Conference on Masculinity. I'll be emceeing both days. If you need any information, go to the website. Fantastic. Also like to thank Dr. Tachi from Florida checking in. She really enjoyed the conversation, and she is a great person. Again, check out Mediascope, 6 p.m., Periscope, and Facebook Live every Wednesday, most Wednesday evenings. Last three things I'd like to say. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Next up, sometimes you have to get smaller to get stronger. And finally, block assumptions. I'd like to thank everyone who watched this epic conversation live on the replay. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and as we say from Jamaica, walk good. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.